Okay, so as promised, I wanted to just cover some sewing basics for you guys. I talked about sort of some basic tools in a list that I put online. Just some scissors, a seam ripper would be great, pins, super helpful. Some of the items that I talked about that are optional but super helpful. Okay, I decided to show you on the mat because this is easier. So this is an acrylic ruler. This one is only 18.5 inches long, but they make them that are 24 inches, which would go all the way to the end of that cutting mat. And also this is the cutting mat I was talking about that has like measurements on it. This is a really big one, but you could easily use one that's half this size. These are Wonder Clips. I'm holding my phone, so this is tricky. Anyways, these are awesome for when you have things that you can't put a pin through. So these are cool, but you definitely don't have to have them to start sewing. And excuse the strobing light. One of my lights is going out. This is the rotary cutter, and this is to be used in conjunction with a mat and ruler. But again, you can easily just cut with scissors, mark with a pencil, cut with scissors. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys some basics on sort of a standard electronic machine. I mostly use my Juki for a lot of things, but because it's all mechanical and it's not digital at all, and most machines now are, I don't want to show my examples on that because it might be confusing if you use a different kind of machine. Everything on here is very mechanical. It has knobs, and it's an awesome machine and it goes super fast, but I want to show you guys how to use just sort of a standard machine. So this is the machine that I teach on. This is an Eversewn Sparrow 25. And it just has some basic controls. Your machine may or may not have a speed control. These have a speed control. You can always just control the speed with your foot pedal. The lighter you press, the slower it goes. You will almost definitely have some sort of reverse stitch on your machine. It might look like this, like a button, or it might be a toggle like this on a more basic machine. Every machine will also have a tension dial. My hands are so gross from washing them all the time, so sorry about that. Mine likes to be at 4. Most machines like to be between 3 and 4. So we'll talk more about tension after I show you some stitching, but your machine will have that. And this machine has a needle down button. Yours might have something like that, or it might not. And your machine will probably have some sort of stitch length selection. Standard is between 2 and 2.5. And you may have some sort of needle position changing capability, or maybe you won't if it's a really simple machine. This machine also does some different stitches, but we're just going to focus on just a straight stitch. So I'm going to come right back and show you a couple other important things. Okay, so I figured out how to use my little tripod. So now I'm going to show you guys just sort of about the bobbin. In case you've never sewn anything, the bobbin is underneath where you sew, and it just creates the bottom thread that you see. Your top thread up here is what you see on top of your item. Whoa. And your bobbin thread is what you see on the bottom. So for some reason, oh, this is my. So anyways, this bobbin is already wound, but I'm going to show you guys how to do that too. And on this one, if you notice, you always want to put your bobbin in like it's in the shape of a P. And then there should be some kind of mechanism that you have to catch and bring your bobbin around. And then when you thread your sewing machine, even though you're going to have a different sewing machine than me, sewing machine threading is almost always a similar path. So I'm going to take this out so I can show you guys. Obviously my thread is over here in this little area. And first I'm going to go through here. Yours may be like a little bar, but there's some kind of hook here that you need to put your thread under. Usually kind of snaps. And then you're going to hook around the back side of something up here. And you're going to come straight down and make this, I call it the U-turn, and come back up on the right-hand side. And I'm going to bring it around to the left of that metal thing. If you can't see that metal thing, there's a dial on the right side of your machine that makes it go down or up. So just bring it up so you can see it, because you want to see that the thread is like in that little loop. And then I'm going to come straight down, and I have a little metal piece here, and almost every machine will have one or two little metal things. Yours might only be right down here on by the needle, but mine has two. So I'm going to go behind this and behind this. And now my thread is down here right by my needle. Something about the needle, if you haven't recently used your sewing machine or put a new needle in, that's a good idea to do before you start a project. And it's really easy. Most machines have, let me come down a little bit. Most machines have, oh, there it is, some kind of little screw right here that you just untighten and the needle comes out. And then on the needle, there's usually a flat edge. So see, the flat edge is toward the right. And it just depends on your machine which way the flat side goes into where the needle is received. Mine, I think, I don't remember. It's to the back. And then you just tighten it up when you put a new one in. I love these Schmetz Microtex needles because they're super sharp and they work for like nearly everything I need to do. Schmetz also just makes like a universal, so those are fine too. And so then I'm going to thread my needle. If your machine has a threader, great. If not, that's fine. You can literally just cut a nice edge on your thread and wind it through there. So now what you always want to do before you start sewing is bring your needle down and catch your bobbin thread and bring it up through here. So I'm going to put my needle down. Mine has a button, but again, you can use the dial on the side of your machine. And now if you see, I have this other loop of thread. So I'm going to take both of my pieces of thread and put them toward the back. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom back out a little bit so I can show you guys that I'm just going to test my machine. Always test your fabric first. Test some fabric. It doesn't have to be the fabric you're going to use, because the idea is you want to make sure your tension's good before you start sewing. So I'm just going to sew. Get my foot pedal in the right position here. This is really slow. So I'm going to speed that up a little bit. So you just want to sew to the end of your fabric. Whatever you're sewing, just sew to the end. Something I didn't mention for beginners. Somewhere in the throat of your machine, or it may be on the back, is this little lever. When you start sewing, you need to put it down. When you're done sewing, you lift it up to take your item out. So never start sewing with it up because you'll immediately regret it. So I'm just going to cut that. And this machine was literally just service, so the tension is perfect. But sometimes your stitches might not look very straight, or maybe there's like little loops on the bottom. So if it looks funky, then you can adjust your tension, which is that dial I mentioned here at the top. Hold on, I'm going to zoom back out. I don't know why it's not letting me. Anyway, so you can adjust your tension if needed. This one's fine. And then the other thing that you should watch for is if you have a major issue with the thread on the bottom, then it could be your bobbin sewed correctly. But everything looks great on this. I'm also happy to answer questions about that. So if you guys are having some kind of machine issue, you can either message me or comment. So now I think that's kind of the basics of just sort of how you get started sewing. And let me show you, I do want to show you on the other side of the machine the dial I was talking about. This is the dial right here that will make your needle go up and down also if you don't have a button. That's also where the plugs are usually. Yeah, so I think that's it. What I forgot to mention is that you need an iron. This is actually a cordless iron, but just any regular old iron will do. And an ironing board. If you don't have a big ironing board, not to worry. That's my extra. They make these little tiny ones and they sell them at Target and other places, and you can literally hang it in a closet. Sorry, my dog's trying to come in. And those work great too. And for most of the projects that I'm going to show you, like for beginners, that'll work fine.